Hello, my dears. How is everyone doing today? My lovely Monica, how are you? Good morning, how are you? I am so excited for yesterday was such a weird, I don't know if you guys felt it, but it was such a weird, just like energy type of day. And now I'm feeling so excited because after that, I like went out and I was practicing these principles that I was gonna or that I'm gonna teach today and just kind of solidified it even more of creating the invitation and being out with my family yesterday and just recalibrating and using these tools. Like I am so excited to bring them forward. So as we're coming on, I know time zones are different and I just want to honor those that are going to watch the replay. I know the login information, like tech was just not on our fucking side yesterday. Like it was just not. And it's a human moment and it's the reality. And just like with dating and life, it's one of those things of like how chill and relaxed and soft can I be in this context? How, even if things aren't functioning properly, like how relaxed and how easeful can I be within this moment? So let us know. I know we've spoken with some of you guys in the back end in DMs or on email that like it wasn't uploading and things of that nature. And if you're watching this replay, I assume that means you're logged in and can see it. But if there's things that are coming up or the playlist isn't working or other tech issues, email us. You'll either hear from me or you'll hear from Cassandra, which is my assistant that can help you guys out and organize that. But how was the homework yesterday of writing the forgiveness letter and really looking at the stories that were told about us and our belief systems and how that still plays in the present? That's what I kind of get when I do these forgiveness letters, because I do them quite often. And so I'm wondering if you want to put it in the chat, Monica. I don't know if you're busy or things like that, but if you are, I'm just gonna talk. But I know for me, when I was doing the forgiveness letters and when I do them, it's often this reflection of what story is being told about or to myself about my experiences that I've had based on someone else's experience of me, right? And that often gets in the way of our confidence and desiring to be seen, but also fearing being seen. And these kind of moments that get in the way of dating and becoming that bitch and of being bold and being brave and really putting ourselves out there. And so what I'm really excited about today is to really dive into that side of things and to experiment and grow and all these kind of things. Hello, Melissa. Good to see you. Good to see you. Hello, Laura. Oh my goodness, everyone. How is everyone doing? I'm so excited. I was just talking to Monica and kind of giving a breakdown of, doing the forgiveness letters and how was that experience for you, and really navigating those things and what can kind of come up in those moments of looking at forgiveness and how the stories that we've experienced or the stories that we've been told can often start to play within our present moment. And so I love these forgiveness letters, and you can revisit them often when you're feeling a crunch or you're feeling a block or when something's getting in your way, to really see like, what is the story that was told about me from someone else's perspective that is now playing into the present moment, getting in, in the way of, the love I desire or the health I desire, or, the way I feel about my body. Like these, it's always a fun practice to revisit and re-enter. I actually kind of start every program with a forgiveness letter because I think it's always fun. And so today, what I really want to dive into is all about creating the invitation. And so I was just saying, opening up with this is like, yesterday was such a fucking roller coaster. Like it was weird and tech and all these kind of things, and it really wants to pull you and kind of grab at you. And when things starts to go quote unquote wrong, it's fun to play with like, how soft can I be? How in my feminine can I be? And I also can relate this back to dating, right? Like when things aren't going as well, or when we're stuck in this healing phase, or when there's a crunch, right? Like we want to force because we want to get out of it. And so what I want to talk about today is creating that like energetic match, that invitation. And so it was so fun. I was practicing these principles yesterday, and then I went out with my little sister and used these tools and got asked on a date. So I'm really excited to bring them forward. I'm like, wow, this is fun, and how quick it gets to be, and how fun it gets to be, and how easy it gets to be. And so One of the first things that I want to first address is that your beliefs are based on your past experiences. So we are 95% of a cellular memory. So our subconscious, so our programming, so our experiences, our dating, our family life, our everything is based on what we've experienced up until this moment. And so when we're stuck in these belief systems and paradigms of, and this is why we started with the forgiveness letter, of when we're stuck in these paradigms, it often gets hard because we're stuck in protection mechanisms. And I was actually having this conversation with my little sister last night because, again, it's so wild how different dating cultures are, from cultures to age groups to the way we start to expand. But one thing that I see happen often is we're repeating cycles, right? Like, I don't know if you've experienced this, but I know I did, like having the same argument, but like with a different partner. And you're like, why does this keep coming up? Or like dating the same type of people. Like for me, like cancers kept coming into my life. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, why do I keep dating cancers? Or every partner that I've had cheated on me. And I'm like, why is this a continuation? Like what is this cycle happening? And so there's a science that meets the soul here. So our nervous system is a match for that, right? Like regardless of thinking it's just a freak accident or playing in that victim mode, we are an energetic match for these things coming into our life because that's what our nervous system is going to draw in. And so I was having this conversation with my sister, and she was having like, I draw in X type of men. And for me, I was like, I just can't relate, and same thing with like moving to Dallas and people talking about there's certain type of people that live in Dallas, and people kind of bashing the way people are there. And I was like, to be honest, like all I've met is good people, like heart-centered leaders and people that match that. And that's because of the work. That's because of regulating the nervous system. That's because instead of being in self-protection mechanism, which can come, especially in dating, or self-sabotaging, which can come from dating, you can switch that around. And like what science calls, or what society calls sabotage, is actually just self-protection. So looking at what your nervous system is truly calling in, right? And that's a journal prompt that I want to have for this evening, is like, what cycles do you keep seeing repeating in your life? And instead of avoiding not looking at them, that we can often do, because at least for me, that's what I did. I was like, I don't want to look at the fact that all these guys keep coming into my life and cheating on me. Like that's a them problem, not a me problem. But when it happens more than once, that's a you problem, right? And if you want to shift that patterning, it's like, okay, so what is that core belief? What is that core fear underneath this repeating pattern, right? So for me, I was looking at it and being like, I don't actually think I'm lovable, and I think I'm difficult to love, because that is something that my dad has said to me several times, like, you are difficult to love. And hearing that from a father, it's like, okay, and tell me more, like, what is that? But seeing that repeated in my relationship patternings was, again, moving things from the subconscious level, the 95% subconscious level, to the 5% conscious level. And so you can start to look at it, and it doesn't necessarily mean we have to shift it or blame anyone or not take responsibility or things of that nature. It's just bringing awareness to it so that we can then shift that kind of paradigm. Does that make sense for you guys? Let me know also, like, light up the chat box. Let me know anything that comes up for you, any questions you want explained more of the science, or if something activates you and you want to have a conversation around that. Like, again, this is how we shift patternings and have conversations. And, if there's a certain type of patterning you see coming up within your dating, let's talk about it, right? Like this, it benefits the whole, right? It's not just a you thing. I mean, you can private message me as well. Anyways, but so if we're looking at these things and looking at, okay, so what is my nervous system trying to protect me from? Because although your nervous system can be sitting there and saying, like, I'm protecting you, and often when we think it's protection, we think it's good, right? But sometimes it's just a repeated pattern, right? And it's not necessarily good or bad. It's just a repeated pattern. So when we're looking at in that kind of context of like, okay, so what is this deeply protecting me from? And so if we're attracting people who are not available, going deeper into that, where it's like, what is this protecting me from? Being vulnerable, being fully in love with someone. And I'm going to talk about the ladder of believability today. And that's going to also be a part of our homework. So we can start to expand your nervous system and stretch your nervous system within the context of that. But what I've seen with clients, right? And this is a big part of sacred singlehood and unattached. When we're attracting unavailable men, we're actually protecting ourselves from getting a broken heart and being vulnerable and like cerebrally, it's that context of like, no, like I want to be loved. I want to attract this deep love, but there's also this fear of that commitment, of that growth, of that portal of activation, because love is triggering as fuck. We're going to be talking about that today too. It's triggering as fuck because it brings forward all of our shadows, all of our insecurities, all these things that we like can keep to ourselves because we're alone in our own little safe bubble. And then when we're in partnership with someone, that's reflected back to us. And that can be something that's a fear state. So when you're looking at that, that's a prompt to really look at like, what is underneath this? What is this protecting me from? These unavailable men, or these men that cheat, or, you know, the not like, what is it? Like not the mama boy, but like the ones that are very in their feminine and like don't do something or lazy. Like the context of the spectrum of people that we call into our life is very broad. And so just journaling deep on that of like, what am I actually protecting myself from? Right. And like looking at like, well, I keep attracting cheating men. Why? Because I think I'm unlovable. And I can say in my head 100 times with my mantras, I'm lovable, I'm lovable. And they will work to a degree. But when we've experienced trauma, or when we've experienced heartbreak, which is a trauma and it's a trapped emotion that has not been released, mantras don't totally work because it's sitting there and it's going, okay, but I can prove to you this, right? Look at this example where this guy cheated on you, or this guy abandoned you, or you got rejected here, or you know, this horrible sex experience here. Like there's a spectrum that your subconscious will start to plant seeds on. And so you can say it to yourself, and maybe you've witnessed this, right? Where it's like, I am so lovable. And then there's that like little squeaky voice like in the back behind your ear where it's like, no, like it's not believable. And so this is where that part of, yes, you have to show up as her before you become her. So you have to show up as that bold bitch before you become her. Like that is definitely a thing that we have to play with. And there's expanding your nervous system. So there's this concept of the ladder of believability and manifestation and personal development. And when we're stuck in this belief system and things aren't coming to life, there's a gap, right? So I can say like, I want a love story for the ages. And you guys have probably heard me say this because I do. I'm such a romantic. I'm double Libra. I fucking love love. Love it so much. That's what I'm here to do. But if I go back in my dating history, right? I come from domestic violence. I come from addictions. I come from trauma bonding. I come from almost dying from past relationships, right? Like that was the context of my relationships. That's all I had known up until this previous relationship where I put all of these tools into practice. And so if I had, and I've always had this belief, like the way I shifted out of those or got inspired being like, love is different, or I desire my love life to be different, even though it wasn't modeled to me in this way. I desired to be different. I started watching like romance movies. Like I love Sweet Home Alabama, or like Eat, Pray, Love. Like I actually went and like lived her life and like stayed in the same places and like Bali and whatever to expand my nervous system and to start to plant a seed. Right. And so, but I was constantly telling myself, like, I want a love story for the ages. But because my nervous system was used to chaos and trauma, if I even met someone that was willing to love me, and I did after a domestically violent relationship, this man came into my life and he told me he loved me. And I literally looked at him and I was like, why did you do that? Self-sabotage or self-protection, right? And getting in my own way. I think romantic too. Yes, we love romance. And I would get in my own way, right? And I didn't understand why, because I wanted a love story for the ages. So why, when this man who is successful and he had been one of my very good friends for several years, like it was a safe place for me to land, right? Why, when someone tells me that I love you, I question it. And I had that deep belief, like, you don't know me. You don't know my dark side. You're in love with this light, vibrant part of me, but you don't know my dark side. I'm not lovable. And so it actually wasn't a him problem, right? It's a me problem. Not in the context of like something was wrong with me. It was I didn't understand trauma yet. I didn't understand my nervous system. I didn't understand that I was an energetic match for chaos. And something safe actually wasn't safe to me. This is why we often see people that have been through trauma or have been through heartbreak. And if you tell them to go meditate, it's like, that sounds fucking horrible. Like, I'm not, that hurts my heart. Like that can't, because chaos is the vibration. Chaos is the thing that we call in. And so really looking at, you can say things cerebrally in your head. I want a love story for the ages. I want the romance. I want them to plan dates. I want them to leave me. I want, like I can feel that alive in my body now because I know that's to be written. But at the time when I look back at these kind of things, it wasn't a match, right? So when it comes to the ladder of believability, that's where we start to stretch our nervous system instead of stress it. Because if I would have jumped into that relationship with that man, and I did date him, I ended up breaking his heart. It was not cool. It changed my entire life for 2 years because I realized we cannot keep hurting people unless we don't heal our trauma. Like, we cannot do this. But what I realized in the context of that is that would have stressed my nervous system too much, just like someone that's been through trauma and they go on a Vipassana for 10 days and they actually go into psychosis because it's too much stress on the nervous system. So when you're looking at where you're at right now in your dating life, in your personal life, in your relationships, right? Whatever context, whatever led you to coming to this masterclass, where are you really at? Where are you really at? And where do you want to go? Right? And this could be something that we journal out, we sketch out, what have you. Where do you want to go? Right? Like, what is that love story of the ages? Like, what does that look like for you? Again, it is going to be entirely different for each and every one of us. And then you can draw like a little staircase. What is actually the steps that from getting here to here, who do you have to become in these small moments that will not stress your nervous system, but will stretch it? Right? How can you start to play with your nervous system in that way? And, yesterday I said in the homework, like, can you listen to the music and start to play with your nervous system and see like, oh, like when I'm listening to music like this, I feel happy. Where does happy feel? So there are 3 stages of our nervous system that you can start to play with around this, right? So we have our ventral state. That's our highest. That's our healthiest. That's when we're connected. That's when we're like in our zone. That's like, you're like, oh my God, I'm in it. Like, I feel so good. That's your ventral. And then we have our sympathetic. And so I call this my like spicy little Latina. Like, it is like fiery, it is bold, it can be angry. It's that kind of zone for me, right? I give it the color red. I feel it very much in my center, like in my heart. Like, it is very just like my shoulders get broader. Like, that's how I feel it when I know I'm in my sympathetic. Then we go to our dorsal, which is I call it my Eeyore phase. It's like the quiet, the depressed, the dark. It's like a dark blue hue for me, like when I can feel it. And so when we start to play with our nervous system in this way and noticing whether it's with music, whether it's environments, whether it's people, whether it's conversations, whether it's the way our house looks, like, can you start to play with where your nervous system is at throughout your day? Just like pause, maybe set an alarm on your phone, what have you, being like, what state am I in right now? let me just do a quick body scan. When you can start to play with that, you can start to play with this level of believability, right? So when you're sitting in this current stage of where you're at, like for me, when I was actually, still using drugs and drinking heavily and partying and all this kind of thing. And it's like, oh, but I want this love story for the ages. And it's like, I don't know if that's actually going to be a match. Like you're going to meet this like holy like saving man. And it's like, oh, I can't do it. I did this while getting a pedicure yesterday, unless I freaking love you, of course. Sitting there stressed and realize I could soften. Exactly. Like that's the thing is like when you're playing with your nervous system, it's like, oh, like how I was talking about yesterday with all the stress and all the roller coaster and all the tech shit that was happening. It's like, how fucking soft can I be right now? How can I lean into this? And playing with your nervous system in that way. And so as you're building this ladder of believability, it's like, what is that one step forward that would keep you in your ventral state, but also feels like a little bit of a stretch, right? And where I see this start to become is the aspect of being seen in dating and life and going out and breaking the rules and what dating is and allowing people to see us and allowing ourselves to be called in, right? And then where can that be for you? Because again, you have to start acting as her before you become her, but we don't want to stress you out, because if you stress out and you get into this like hustle, doing very masculine forward way of approaching healing and dating and life and becoming that bitch, it's misaligned, right? Like that's what we were talking about yesterday, is the misaligned bitch is very defensive and aggressive and hustle culture and the things that we get glorified now. It's like that wounded feminine, wounded masculine, where it's like, I can pay for my own things, I can do this. And we like don't call a masculine man forward. And I don't know, or woman, whoever it is, but there's masculine and feminine in all of us. And so when we're in this like doing aggressive, tense, sympathetic kind of state, we're not really calling in the right things. We're in our self-protection mode. And so it's really playing with how soft can I be? How can I lean into these moments to create more of a safe place, to become a living sanctuary, to really stretch my nervous system in this way. So this can look in various different ways. Like for me, when I first started, it was like, so I did 2 years of singleness after, well, I had that domestic violent relationship. And then that one guy that I broke his heart. And I was like, okay, we're done with men for 2 years. It wasn't the intention, but it lasted 2 years because it got so protective. But for me, my stretch was stay in on Friday night, like learn to be in your own company. And if I'm being completely honest, that usually involved me downing a bottle of wine for the first few months, because I was like, the first month, like 1 month, I was like, I don't know how to be alone with my thoughts. I don't know how to be gentle with myself. I'm so used to being in chaos, because that was the match for my nervous system, right? And so from there, it started to be like, okay, so now we're sitting at home and not working, because then Fridays just turn into like work days at home. And it's like, how do we actually sit? Like, what does self-care mean? Right. And for me, that was, I'm so disconnected from my body. I don't know what that means. Like I literally thought I was asexual. Like I had no interest in anyone at that point. I was so afraid of things. And so it was like, how can I start to play with pleasure? And so that was my next stretch. Okay. So one, it was learning how to actually nourish myself in such a healthy way, to understand when is my hunger signals, when is my fullness signals, how do I play with that? How do I get comfortable with that? How do I start to cook for myself instead of just these quick meals? How do I make that a sensual process? Because when we tap into as many senses as we can, we're actually spiking our dopamine, our oxytocin, our serotonin, the things that call in love, right? Like this is what actually spikes testosterone in our partners, to call forward the masculine inside of them, when we actually are already producing oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin on our own, that actually sparks their testosterone. And so when we can start to play with this context of like, where am I at right now and what's my stretch, right? And continue doing that, whether it's spending one night alone, whether it's traveling alone and making sure we add that in every quarter, whether it's, even for me, it's like I plate all my food, like even takeout food. It's like, it's silly things, but it's like, how can I make this more pleasurable, instead of trying to rush through life, instead of trying to get things quote unquote done and getting very into the masculine, it's how can I actually slow down and soften? So I love that you said that, Melissa. It's like, how can I soften right now? How, like, I know my mentor show, she talks about it, like, how chill can I be when it comes to certain aspects, like playing that game with yourself is like, how can I get back into essentially my body and out of my head of, I need to rush this, I need to fix this, I need to push through this, I need to get to this love story of the ages, because therefore I'm then going to be validated and therefore get something that I'm seeking in my life, instead of just creating it myself, which creates the invitation, right? Because when you're in your joy, it's so easy to create an invitation. But if it's this pressure, it's this neediness, it's this masculine wounded energy, that's not an invitation for anyone, other than generally unavailable, wounded men, like, or women, whoever you're calling it. Like, it's that kind of hustle mismatch of one, hormones, and two, energy that's going at each other. And so we're going to keep calling in the same type of thing. So it's looking at, okay, so what is my stretch? How can I calm down? How can I regulate? How can I chill? How chill can I be? Right? Like, playing with that phrase. And then moving into, how much pleasure can you start to add into your day-to-day life in dating, right? Like, yes, I get the rush of wanting to find love. I get it. But this is a time period of life that you get to explore so much about yourself, what you like, instead of like, will I get chosen, which is a big thing, right? Like, will I finally be chosen and therefore validated that I am worthy of being loved, right? That type of energy into, actually, I'm creating a life that's so fucking beautiful and I get to choose. Instead of sitting out there and being like, will someone choose me when I go to the bar and I look pretty and I do these kind of things and I'm out with my girls and I'm in this moment, it's like, actually, I'm going to sit and I'm going to choose who I want to allow into my energy field, who I want to call in, because my life is already so fucking good that if I want you in it, you're allowed. And that is such a different energy match that also feels like a living sanctuary. Because like I mentioned yesterday, the older we get, the more attached avoidant style is what kind of is there, because they avoid relationships, that's their tendency. And so you've maybe experienced that as we're getting older, that those are the people you're like, why the fuck is everyone I'm dating attached avoidant? Like, what the fuck? Like, scientific or statistically, that's the word I was looking for. Statistically, that's just who's out there, right? Because the secure ones are usually married at this age. And so it's really looking at it and going, okay, so instead of being like, fuck this, fuck the city I live in, fuck the dating and the apps and things like that, it's really looking at, how can I become a walking, pleasurable, safe place, living sanctuary for others to land? Because that's how we change attachment styles. And if you want to learn about attachment styles a little bit more, that's what we're doing inside of Unattached. And when we're starting to shift and mold and change, my sister just popped in here. Shift and mold and change is when we are becoming a, throw me off here with my channel. But when we're a match, right? So when people are attached avoidant and we become a safe place for people to land, that actually regulates their nervous system, which will then regulate ours, right? So instead of thinking, oh, if I get chosen, then I won't be attached anxious, then I won't be attached avoidant, I will then be secure and I will feel like I am chosen and I am safe. It's not necessarily how it works, because that again puts your power of happiness and regulation and steady and calm into someone else's hand, right? And so when you get to sit and go, okay, so how can I become a living sanctuary? What does that look like for me? How can I start to create these invitations of doing what I'm already loving because I am filled with pleasure and delight, right? Like, this is why, like, I love taking myself out to eat once a week by myself. I get dialed up, just like if my honey was coming to take me out on a date, like I do the same thing for myself. And I go and I just chill at a bar and I eat oysters and drink champagne. Like, that is just the thing I do. I love it so much. And then I play this game with myself where it's like, I'm going to talk to someone on my left or my right. And I make that decision before I even get there. Right. Or if I'm out at a party with my friends, this is literally how we met a guy I was seeing back in Dallas. It was just like, let me pick a color shirt of who I'm going to talk to today. And that was it. And I went out because we do have to create the invitation because we do live. And I was testing this theory with the guy I was seeing and his friends, because I was like, what is it like nowadays? Like dating? What's it like? I have no idea in a man's world. Because it seems like y'all are a little bit afraid to start conversations. What's going on here? And he was like, it is like everyone is so sensitive. You talk to a girl, all of a sudden they think you're hitting on them and they're like, no, I have a boyfriend. And it's like, it emasculates us. Like it's not something we really want to do. So as, again, taking radical responsibility to create that invitation. So that's what I do, where it's like, let me pick a color shirt. And that might sound cringe to you because maybe you're more of an introvert and whatever, and same. But again, that was my stretch of my nervous system. How can I go talk to a stranger I wouldn't normally talk to? How can I create this invitation with someone and therefore have a conversation I wouldn't normally have, meet people I won't normally meet? And so this is like this game that I play inside of my nervous system. Again, it took me a long time to stretch my nervous system to get comfortable doing that. And now it's very easy for me to just go out like it was last night and be like, hello world, who wants to dance with me? Who wants to take me on a date? Like, what's up? And it's just a fun thing that you get to play without it meaning anything, without it meaning that you're worthy or you're unworthy if people don't talk to you or any of these things, because it's about you. You go out for you, you dress up for you, you show up as that bitch for you in a soft and tender way. And instead of being like, oh, I'm doing this, so therefore I call in my partner, it's like, no, you're dating to learn more about yourself. You're dating because you're becoming so self-aware to realize the patterns that you're calling in, and therefore getting to know yourself on such an intimate level, so that when this partner comes into your life, this love story of an ages, that will call forward vulnerability, that will call forward being seen and shadows coming to life and being one of the biggest triggers you're going to ever walk through consistently over and over again. You're going to be able to handle it because you know yourself. You know your triggers, you know your wounds, you know your responses. You can tell when you're in a dysregulated state and what's happening and what's coming, and you can communicate that effectively because you're a living sanctuary. And so when you're going to be doing the journal prompt tonight, where it's like, what is this protecting me from? Right? Like, why is this patterning coming up in my life? And what is it actually protecting me from? When you start to witness yourself in that degree and you become a safe place to land, dating becomes pleasurable. Dating becomes, ooh, I'm learning something new about myself. I'm exploring this concept about myself in a different light. And what do I want that to mean? What's the story that I want to write? We're going to be talking about rewriting our story tomorrow a little bit more, and really moving out of quote unquote self-sabotage and self-protection and rewriting what protection means. Because we're never not going to have dysregulation and triggers. Like, that'd be fucking fabulous in the world. That's super soft. But like, we have them. That's the way it works. And so when our protection starts to expand, it actually can become good, right? There's someone chasing us. Perfect. Let's go into fight and flee. Like, let's get the fuck out of here. But when it comes to dating, and that comes up because you're triggered based on a story of a past of someone we haven't forgiven or a heartbreak that came through, and we're then projecting what we think they're going to do, what we think they're going to say, how they act because of someone that we've already dated, or something our parents have said to us, or something, a belief system that we hold because this person dated this person within this industry, and therefore these people are like this. Like, we live in a world of passing our triggers on to other people and our protection onto other people. And when you can start to sit in, how do I want this story to go? And what protection mechanisms do I actually want to start to play with? And my ladder of believability that I am worthy and I am lovable, how do I get there? Right? And so one of the things that I wanted to also expand on is just like getting comfortable being seen. Like, I'm curious to know how you guys feel about that, right? Going out, getting dressed up, that's my life's work. And getting dressed up and, wearing a bold lip color. Like, I actually have a post that I'm going to post about bold lips and the red lipstick and the whole thing. It's like, yes, I think it's pretty and I love it, but also it's always a statement to myself. because I've had exes tell me, don't do that. You're going to call in bad things, and don't dress this way. Don't show too much skin. Don't be too sexy. Don't dance like that. Don't, go out by yourself. Don't be too much, essentially, because bad things will happen. And so now I wear the red lips because fuck that. I want to be seen. I love getting dressed up and looking sexy. Yes. Fuck yes. And I love that for you. You're so beautiful. And when I first saw you, I was like, she's so pretty. But it's one of those things where it's like getting comfortable with that, right? Like walking into a room and being like, oh, all eyes are on me right now. This feels so good. Instead of like, bad things are going to happen to me. And like that feeling can kind of come up based on bad things may have happened to you, right? Like how I said is I was bold. I was this vibrant kid. And then sexual assaults happened. And then this, domestic violence happened. And then the cheating happened. And then these things happened where it was like, let's be less of that then. Let's be this like cute girl instead of the bitch that I love about me, and the bold energy and the things like that, where it's like, no, let's walk into a room and be noticed. And that again takes time, right? And one of the concepts around being seen is like, you don't have to earn it. You don't have to. We live in a world where it's like, well, I have to look this certain way. I have to have this level of success. I have to act this way. I have to speak this way. My body has to look this certain way. My skin has to be this type of way. It's this whole external thing. Being seen is based on your energy and your magnetism in and of your alignment, right? We talked about yesterday, the misaligned bitch and the aligned bitch. The alignment you could be in fucking sweats walking in a grocery store. Your energy enters that room before you do, and it stays long after you left. And so when you walk in and you're like, I am the fucking prize. We're going to be talking more about that tomorrow and showing up in that state. And so if you're feeling like a crunch around being seen, a crunch around vulnerability, a crunch around sexiness and pleasure and, tapping into the femininity of life and being soft, right? Because sometimes soft can be as like, oh, she's weak and she can be taken advantage of, and therefore her heart might get broken, and we build up these defenses. And so we can say, yes, I love showing up in this bold part of myself, but another part of becoming that bitch is being tender, and allowing your heart to lead you, and allowing the softness to lead you, and love to be this safety instead of a trigger. Because my guess is you've had some broken hearts and people have done things. And now there's these defenses up in a way where it's like, oh, but if I'm too vulnerable or I'm too tender, that'll happen again. So I can be sexy and I can be bold and I can claim this bitch title and I can like be this. But the other side of that is also having that soft part and letting that lead and having the duality of both, because that is the match. That's how that creates that invitation. Because if you're too bold, I will never say that statement, but like if you're too protected, that's not going to call in a match, right? That'll usually call in a man that's in their feminine, a woman that's in her feminine. Depends what you're calling in. Some women like that. I don't. I want a masculine man to lead me, to plan the dates, to pick me up, to open my door, to never make me take out a credit card, even if we have like split funds. Like I love to be provided in that way, right? Like just plan it, take care of me, lead me. And so that means dismantling all the self-protection mechanisms of I can do this alone because I don't want my heart to get hurt. So I'm actually not going to allow him to be a man, right? I'm going to take it away. Like, to be honest, I don't even think I've shared this story in any of my classes, but it's like my parents got a divorce when I was 16-ish, and it was horrible. And it actually led my mom to addiction, which then led my mom to dying, to passing away from addiction. So I built up such self, honestly, this is why I started my first business and I continue to do it, because it's like, I want to be so self-sufficient that I don't want that to fucking happen. If my husband ever leaves me, I don't want that to fucking happen to me. I don't want to lose myself. I don't want to do anything. But because of that belief system, I didn't let anyone in. I never, like, I could love and I can have gratitude and I can have, like, even friendships. It was like, I'm self-sufficient because I've watched someone literally die from a broken heart. Right. So it's like, I built up that wall, and to sit in that space and be like, wow, I get you. I see you. It's so validated to sit in that space of self-protection. Like, no one would blame you. Everyone would understand. I'm sure even saying that story, it's like, yeah, I would do the same thing. Like, I get that, you know? But the bravest thing you can do is actually allow yourself to soften, to, again, be a living sanctuary for everyone around you, not even just the people you date, and for yourself, most importantly. And to let your heart and your walls come down and know that you'll be fine, you know, because to have the fullness, the love story for the fucking ages, we also have to be able to hold the alternative that may happen. And if we're sitting in this space of like, I'm so afraid though, like if that happens, I will lose myself. I will, I don't know, die. I'll go into addiction. I will, you know, the stories that will be told because of life experience of whatever you've been through. That fear is very real and alive and very validated. But if we're avoiding the high of life because of that fear, because at the core, maybe you don't trust yourself. I know that was my thing. I don't trust myself. If I get my heart broken, I don't know what I'll do. So I'm going to stay in this chaos. I'm going to stay in domestic violence. I'm going to stay in drug addiction. I'm going to stay in trauma bonding because that's more familiar to me. That I know where I'm going to be disappointed by. That I know the predictability of them cheating and them lying. Like that, I know I can handle that. But what if I'm so in love with someone and they break my heart? Can I hold that? And that took a long time to be like, yeah, I can. And like, to be honest, that happened. Like my recent breakup, that happened. And I'm okay. Thriving, actually. It's good. Like invited the next version of me, the woman I don't know if you guys are into God, Lord, what have you, universe, but I am becoming the woman God intended me to be through that. And so it's looking at like, yeah, I get it. That's fucking terrifying. But also want to be the walking embodiment of you'll still be okay. Because you're doing the work of laying the foundation that you can love someone so much and they're still not going to hold your star. From what I talked about yesterday, they're still not going to hold it. Yes, it's going to hurt, but it won't go anywhere. It's still yours, and it'll probably be ignited in some type of way, and it'll be grounded and it'll be feminine and it'll be safe because you created yourself as a living sanctuary. And so it's looking at this ladder of believability, right? And looking at what is that true fear that's holding you back, that's protecting you with calling in these same cycles, these same patternings, these belief systems, right? And this is also what gets us stuck in that, like, quote unquote, I'm not healed enough yet for this person to come into my life. I don't want to project onto them, or I don't want to, it's like, again, that's a story of our past that doesn't have a place in the present. And we can continue living in the stories from the past, and they're still very real and very alive and very validated. But do they necessarily need to have a place in the present? And so it's looking at that and regulating, because yeah, it's fun. It's one of the things, right? Like, I want a love story for the ages. I want to ride off into the sunset. I want to meet my best friend. I want to, you know, create these things. I want to travel the world. I want to have these banging ass orgasms. Like, I want to go. Like, I'm so ready. And it's like, okay, and what's the fear? What are you protecting yourself from? What's the repeated patterns? Can we look at that? Can we learn to be in our body and feel so fucking safe with ourselves, and to tell when we're in this dysregulation, when we're avoiding pleasure, because that could be scary. That could be a fear state, because we come up with these rules I did this too. These rules of how dating should be. This is how often, this is how it needs to be. It's not allowed to be fun. I can't go out late. I can't do these things. I have to wait 3 dates to have sex with them. I have to do this. Like, huh? Like, who said? Right. And yes, of course, like, I get that, like, when we have sex with people, it's the energetic high and it's things like this, but it's like, when we're putting rules on it, again, we're back in self-protection, not allowing our hearts to be seen because, oh no, what if I fall for them? Oh no, what if I'm too vulnerable too soon? Oh no, what if something opens up in me and I'm left there with my pieces on the floor? And it's like, it'll be okay. You'll always be okay when you continue to build your life for you, right? And this is why I'm saying, like, plan a date with yourself once a week. Go somewhere, like, and not just, you know, I don't know, getting your nails done or something like I love that, but like an actual date of what you expect a person to come into your life and take you on. Can you get comfortable setting that in stone, getting comfortable giving yourself that, getting comfortable being with yourself and celebrating yourself and getting yourself back into a turned on state? So I'll see you in the homework. Like, that's one of the things I want you to do is, like, when you're walking through your life, literally, like yesterday, when everything was fucking chaos, and I was like, I hate tech, I'm going to claw everyone's eyes out. It was getting back to how soft can I be and how turned on in my life can I be right now? In the middle of chaos, how turned on can I be? And it honestly changes the context because also you're spiking your oxytocin in your body, you're spiking the serotonin and the dopamine, which then calls in more opportunities. Your brain starts to actually, instead of scanning for danger, seek for the light, seek for the betterment, seek for the things. And sometimes, like, when people are like, just think of gratitude things, I'm like, this isn't working. I'm very frustrated. Like, I can say I'm thankful, but I'm not. Like, this is not true. And so if I can sit and be like, but how can I be in a turned on state right now? What does that mean to me in this moment? Because frustration can be a turn on too. Like, all emotions are welcome in a turned on state, right? And so it's like, how turned on can I be right now? And how can I lead with that? And that is literally how it ended up in me going out with my sister, dancing the fucking night away, and ending up with a date next week. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Like, yes, more please, universe. Like, it's one of these things because it's no longer, I'm going out to avoid this feeling of anger and frustration. I'm going out to mask this feeling of, I need attention and some type of dopamine hit and something external of myself. It was entirely up to me to get myself back into a turn on state and to get back into ventral nervous system, right? To play with my nervous system in that way of like, okay, I can feel my fucking sympathetic right now. What can I do to get me back into ventral? And it took time. Don't get me wrong. Like, we had a day plan with my family and I was like, I just need to sit on the boat alone. Like, everyone get away from me for this moment in time, and allowing myself to get regulated in that state. And so it's really playing with your nervous system in that way, looking at it and walking through life of being like, how turned on can I be? How can I become a living sanctuary in this moment? How can I take the fucking pressure off of dating so it doesn't feel like it's a homework or a chore or like this person needs to be my husband right now? Like, for me, when I'm looking at dating, it's like, it's a networking event for my soul to become something else, to evolve, to grow, to expand. Because when it's coming from the space of like, this person next that I meet needs to be my husband, that's a lot of pressure on someone. And that's not how men think. Like, you're not a wife until there's a ring on your hand and you are walking down the aisle. Like, that's how men are, very like tactical. Like, they don't think that way, right? It's very, I'm feeling it or I'm not. And then we're like, what do you mean? We've had 3 months of orgasms and play and connection and soul. And they're like, I'm just not feeling it. And then we think that means something about us. And then we get into this space of like, can I mold myself and please them a little bit more to love me a little bit more? And it's like, no, that's not how it works. It's, that's what they said. Cool, great. Next. How can I get in a turn on state? How can I then play with my nervous system and make this mean nothing about you? It never is. When we're dating and someone says they don't like us or they don't want to continue dating us and things like that isn't a rejection of, and I get that feels like it. I get it so much, but it's not a rejection of you. It's just not a match. It's just not a match. and removing yourself from meaning you need to be anything less, or you need to be more of something, or you need to dress a certain way, or you need to have a certain thing. Like, there is nothing. Going back to the concept of what we talked about yesterday, you were born worthy and nothing has changed. Absolutely nothing. And if someone doesn't choose you, there's no pleasing them into loving you. It's trusting. It's doing the grieving process, letting out like what we walk through in sacred singlehood, like the sacred rage, and like letting that fully express so that the breakup or, the ending of that relationship doesn't turn into stored trauma in your body and start to repeat itself in other capacities, but really just sitting there and being like, okay, my human needs to have a moment and get this out of my system. And this means nothing about me. It's them. They're on a journey. Cool. Next, please. I'm available for more. I'm available for that. And that's how we quantum leap our healing, right? Like, that's how I was literally looking at my phone. Because last time I was visiting my parents was when my partner we had like this beautiful day out on the beach. And then we sit at dinner and he looks at me and he goes, actually, I think I want to break up because I want to be with a Latin woman. And I was like, I thought we were going to be engaged like in 2 months. I didn't. Okay. And like, yes, let the human moment happen, but also was able to quantum leap my healing within 5 months because it's that concept. Yes, my human is hurt right now. But again, that has nothing fucking to do with me. I can't change the fact that I am not Latin, unfortunately. Can't do that. But it is a thing that I can do of what story do I want to tell? And this is what we're going to go into tomorrow. What I'm going to leave with today is like, what story do I want to tell about who I became in that process of my dating life, of me, of my leadership, of my sensuality, of the way that I feel about my body, and that I don't have to earn love, right? Because that was my scale of believability. Because I thought I had to earn it. I thought I had to be the good housewife. I thought I had to be quiet and all these kind of things and earn it, quote unquote, as opposed to just being and enjoying who you are and who you get to be and how you get to walk in this world and how you show up. And it's playing with that, right? Like, you're in this moment of singlehood, of seeking relationship, of seeking partnership. And it's like, one day you're going to tell this story, whether it's in your business, whether it's to your children, whether it's to whomever. How do you want to tell that story of who you became in that process? What did you learn about yourself? What patterns did you see, and how did you dismantle them so that you could become that hero of your journey, so that you could create this love story for the ages? But what did you witness about yourself? What was that growth portal of activation like? Instead of being like, why does this keep happening? It's like, ooh, there's an edge. How do I want to stretch out of that? Thanks, universe. That one sucked and it hit the human a little bit hard, but thank you. Now I'm going to stretch and I'm going to shift. What is this protecting me from? Thank you. And really starting to rewrite our narrative in that way, and looking at like, what does safety really mean to me in dating? How can I make this feel safe? Because honestly, what I witness with clients and when I'm talking to people in my programs and things like that is like, we're dating. It doesn't feel safe. It's not as enjoyable as it gets to be, because we're running around looking to be chosen. That's a hard feeling to continue to chase. And so if you can sit in a space of like, ooh, what do I want to choose today? What turns me on? What pleasure? Like, the question I always ask myself is like, what memory am I making today? How do I want to write that? And how do I want to feel safe within the context of this? Every single day, how can I feel safe? Noticing when my body's in dorsal and depressed, noticing when my body's in my sympathetic. How can I get to ventral? How can I get back to safety? How can I start to play with these levels and start to stretch my nervous system instead of stress it when it comes to dating, when it comes to being seen, when it comes to being vulnerable? What is that edge to feel safe? Okay. And so for tonight's homework, there's 3 things. I'm pulling it up so I remember. Wait, is there 3 or is it 2? 3. So the playlist that I have for you guys in the homework that I provided with you guys yesterday, I want you to practice being in a turned on state and dancing with it. Feel how good it feels to be in your body, this human shell, in this moment, at this capacity, at whatever way that it looks, whatever way that it feels, at whatever health stance it's at, can you move your body in a turned on state? Just dance and move and feel that. When I first started doing this, I do this every day now, but like when I first started doing this, I felt so weird and I would just lay on the floor because I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, what do you mean? Like, it was like, I don't know how to do this. But like now it's like this sensual flow, and like it's so fun too, because now it's when I go out and I can dance and it's out there, and like that is an energy, it's an invitation, right? When you're open and you're free and you're sitting there and you're dancing and you're flowing, and it's this type of vibe. Again, it's not from being seen to be chosen. It's you're choosing yourself and you're being in your body. And that's such a safer energy for people to approach, because it just, one, it looks beautiful, two, it feels safe. So can you practice ecstatic dance? I said that weird, ecstatic dance. Yes, that seems right. Practice that. I do it every day. I do it in the morning when I wake up, and I do it before I do my calls, because we love to be in body and it's a clear channel and it's an invitation. So before you go on a date, before you take yourself on a date, can you dance? Can you get into your body? Can you get into your feminine? Can you get into your pleasure, instead of like rushing, getting dressed, running out the door? Why is no one talking to me? It's like, seem a little stressed. Just gonna put that out there. And it's like, okay, so how can I connect back into my pleasure every time I leave my house? Anytime, because anytime's an opportunity to meet someone new. Like, I think I've spoken with all of you where we're like, we're fucking over the apps, man. Like, we're over it. This doesn't meet my energetic needs, and I keep meeting douchebags. Like, this isn't working. And so it's like, okay, so taking responsibility for your energy and your beliefs and how you get into a turn on state every time you leave your house. And we're going to be talking about tomorrow that you are your brand, and how to really step into this and how to honor this, and really getting into, once we're dating, how to create this allure, how to create this safety, how to create this magnetism that keeps them coming back. And we're going to practice that. So a static dance, getting into pleasure, whatever pleasure means to you. Maybe it's not a static dance. Maybe it's just prancing around in lingerie or staring at yourself naked in the mirror and, honoring how beautiful you are. Like, that's a big concept too, just like, I do this with my clients that we work through eating disorder recovery. It's like, how long does it take you to stand when you're naked in front of the mirror to go from your toes to your head without thinking a negative, intrusive thought? This took years for me to get through, like the subconscious programming of like what a body is supposed to look like, and to actually get comfortable being naked. Again, helps with the turned on state, helps when you're dating, because it's like, fuck me with the lights on, this feels good, like being comfortable in those kind of states. So practicing, like, what does pleasure mean to you, whether it's a static dance, but like put on the music, let it flow with you, let it like literally speak through your body, because your body has a narrative that your brain doesn't have the words to even comprehend. And so that could be movement, that could be sacred rage, that could be what have you. But for what we can play with today, try a static dance and see what comes through. It might just even be like thrashing around, just being like, letting your raging teenager come alive. Like, that's perfect. Let it come through. Let the emotions come through without the narrative of your head telling you a different story of like, you're doing it wrong or whatever. Like, see how this kind of comes through. And then the journal that I want you guys to do is really working. And I like to like do a staircase, the ladder of believability, where you're realistically at right now, patterns that keep coming in, and what you want. And play with, what's that stretch? And this is where you can start to tap into your nervous system and like really get into a like calm, meditative kind of space where it's like, what would stretch my nervous system, but not put me in my sympathetic nervous system, right? So whether that's taking yourself out, whether that starts with coffee, whether that's going to a bar, whether like by yourself, whether that's whatever, pleasure leading the way, self-pleasure, what have you, like what is that 1% that we can start to stretch so that we can become the version of ourselves that we want to become, that bitch, that bold, that brave, that person that's calling it that love story of the ages. Like, continue to build that stairs. I said that way, those stairs, and then start to play with that on a day-to-day basis, but bringing awareness to it takes it from the subconscious into the conscious. And then looking at, what are the fears? What is my patterning and my protection? What is this protecting me from? Deep inside of that, what is my deep fear of why this hasn't come into my life yet, and playing with that. So I'll put that all in the module and the thing. Like I said earlier, if you can't log in yet, please let me know. We love tech here at Healing to Happy. We're working on it. And if it's not working, you'll either hear from me or Cassandra to get it all sorted out. I'm playing in that. And then tomorrow, I'm going to be talking to you about creating the magnetism, about when we're in that dating scenario, how to keep it going so it goes beyond this whole like 3-month kind of oxytocin die-off phase. And yeah, and then I'm going to add, this like shop with me thing to explain programs that we have coming up if you want to continue this conversation. Because like I said, we have Unattached, where you can learn about attachment styles and how to become a living sanctuary and become securely attached instead of anxious or avoidant, or a blend of the two. And then we have Sacred Singlehood coming up, which is going to be our 4-week program with high level mentorship. And you can buy it all within the summer bundle and get the Voxer mastermind inside of that. So I'm going to add that because I'm just going to do that live for everyone instead of spending time here. So this is just going to stay within only becoming that bitch. And then if you have questions or you want to jump in, you guys can just reach out because you know where to find me on the internet. But I will see you tomorrow. How is today for you guys? Do you have any questions? Did anything come up? Anything fresh? Anything on your heart? How's everyone's heart? It's always my favorite question to ask people is, how's your heart? Great. I love it. I love it so much seeing you guys. And thank you for the patience with the tech yesterday. I am so sorry. It's warm and fall. Big love for you, my dear. So I will see you guys tomorrow, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that'll be that. Cassandra will upload this to our platform on Member Vault. So if you want to watch the replay and look at the homework and things like that, you can find that there. So I love you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.